but yeah, man, I mean, it was interesting, and then when you compare the history of it, right, because what's the big conservative thing? Well, the Soviet Union doesn't exist anymore. Look how many bajillion people they killed. Well, bro, I'd hate to tell you that I would argue that capitalism has probably killed twice as many people just through economic inequality, especially in the global South.
Yeah, or outright, CIA-backed right-wing killing campaigns. Everyone who's been watching this channel a little while knows I did a review of the Jakarta method not too long ago, which is fucking terrifying. Right. So when like today Ilhan Omar is sharing voicemails of guys, calling her the N-word and, saying they want to kill her, like the American right, this is something I would love to get your outlook on, like as somebody who's like a military veteran and has spent, some time with the American right, the heavily armed, militaristic, nationalistic American right, like, they're kind of, it's to me, January 6th, other things, Michigan state capitol and the governor kidnapping plot. It seems like they're itching for like a counter-revolutionary, anti-communist, just the number of people who drove their cars into protesters last year.
Yeah, I agree with you. The thing is this is just me talking here, right? And not from any kind of like analytical place. This is just from people that I served with that have literally drank that fucking QAnon Kool-Aid and things like that, right?
Shit. Yeah.
But what they don't want to just kick off like that counter-revolutionary anti-communist thing. They want the state backing to do it, right? And the thing is, watch how our everybody's like, look, hey Joe, 2020, man, we did it. We libs got all, the left's got all three parts of government. It's like, bitch, no, we don't. No, we don't. Okay, like if you think that one vote that Kamala Harris has to break a tie, if you ever think she's going to use it, I have some oceanfront property in Utah I'd like to sell you. Right? Because there's never going to be a tie as long as you have Joe Manchin claiming to be a Democrat. He's always going to side with Republicans. He's shown that. Right? Yeah. And then the Supreme Court.
That's the other thing people keep leaving out of their calculus of, the voting rights legislation is like they've already gutted the Voting Rights Act, which makes you think they're not just going to smack this,
And then what is it? 4 states now that have already passed legislation to make it that much harder for people in underserved economically areas to vote.
Yeah, if they haven't already passed legislation to release liability and make it much easier to drive your car into protesters or claim a riot, right? All these things. And so this is the thing about, let's talk history, because how much does a historical analysis, I've heard some people talk about, Trump isn't a fascist. He's just a good old American authoritarian. You know what I mean? And this is what American authoritarians have done before. Talk about the anarchists, employ the police. What's your take on that?
No, I mean, there's no difference between an American authoritarian and a fascist. When you're utilizing,
very good, thank you.
When you're utilizing the state means of violence against the people, and that could be anything. It could be police officers. It could be the IRS, which are more likely to audit people under the poverty line than they are the rich and wealthy. I mean, just look at the report that came out a couple of days ago, where it outlined all those billionaires that paid nothing in tax,
nothing at all.
But it showed up. It showed the tens of billions of dollars they made in the last 4 years. Right, that's a form of violence, right? When you don't hold people accountable. Why is Warren Buffett paying a 3.4% base tax rate, which is essentially when they did the math, that's what it came out to. But like me, who only makes about 20, 25, depending on how many stories I sell, right? Why am I paying like almost 40% of my pay to taxes? Like, fuck, dude.
Yeah, and at the same time, people in this country are dying from they can't buy insulin, they can't afford
Yeah,
insulin, right? So that's what I think you mean partly by the violence.
yeah.
But you know what that reminds me of? Because I was listening to your latest podcast that came out today about the French Revolution. Everybody go listen to that. YDK History. You don't know history. It's really great, man. You're bringing on academics. You're bringing on people in PhD programs or professors to talk different historical events. And one thing that totally just had me thinking about that story about billionaires not paying any taxes was the fact that the nobility at the time of the French Revolution paid no taxes.
That like literally nothing. These families, these noble families in France, had exemptions from tax going back like hundreds of years.
Yep.
And the thing is as the French monarchy kind of kept solidifying their hold on power and became more and more authoritarian, because you have to think France by the late 18th century going into the early 19th century, right? Like this was the last like authoritarian monarchy in Europe. All the other ones had like a parliamentary monarch who they could kind of push back against the parliament, but the parliament had stopgaps there, right? It wasn't quite like England, but when you look at the German ducal states and the former Holy Roman Empire, right? There was a lot more there that the parliament could do. France didn't even have that, right? So like I thought that was crazy because I read a shorter book and then did some more digging on my own. And then Dr. Grisson came on and just like blew my mind. She was a great guest.
She's great.
Like,
yeah.
Her enthusiasm for the subject is infectious.
Yeah, and it another thing that made me think was how the French Revolution was preceded by a few years of like poor harvest, right?
Yeah.
So there was a material pressure on people to act. I'm an independent journalist on the central coast of California. I live in Santa Maria, and I'm just, a couple, 20-minute drive, half-hour drive from Mission La Purísima near Lompoc, Mission Santa Ynez in Santa Ynez, and Mission Santa Barbara in Santa Barbara. These are three relatively close missions in the mission system, and they were the site of one of the largest Native American rebellions by the Chumash out here in I believe 1811, early 1800s. And what's fascinating, or it could be 1830s, Jesus, I can't remember. I wrote a story about it years ago for the paper I used to work for. But what's interesting there was that rebellion was preceded by several years of drought and disease. Especially among the Chumash, and there were all these other like factors, like police brutality. Basically, the whole thing started after a Chumash man was beaten by, and the whole dynamic of the Mexican military after the revolution involved in the missions, but the Spanish friars are still there. So this man was beaten by a Mexican military jail guard, basically beat him, and then this whole thing happened. The Chumash held Purísima for like a month, cut gunner holes in the top of the mission, where little kids go for their fourth grade projects out here or whatever. So you know what I mean?
Yep.
But there's no plaque there. It's not even talked about. But those material realities, and I think of what happened last year. Black Lives Matter resurgence, probably one of the largest, uprisings in modern America, preceded by the pandemic year. Preceded by our government throwing us a fucking pittance. $1,200 here, maybe some unemployment benefits here or there. So
I mean, that's the kicker, though. That's a great point. Like when you have popular, uprisings or protests, they don't happen in a vacuum. Right? They just don't pop out. There is an underlying reason for it, and the thing is, if people think it's going to get better here because, Chauvin was tried and found guilty, or because Joe Biden's in office, that's a very naive way to look at it, because we still have so many communities that are food deserts, where people can't get food that's going to, be a source of nutrients for them. And on top of that, we are losing jobs. Like I don't like, this is what kills me about these, another like knock against these conservative dick bags, right? Is the fact that they're like, well, no one wants to go to work. No, people just realized that they do not want to toil away for nothing anymore, and they know how to value their labor.
Yep.
Like, why would you want to go work at a fucking restaurant for, here in North Carolina, servers make $2.35 an hour plus tips.
That's
right?
Fucking nuts. Like that's nuts, man. And as a Californian, we all bitch about the cost of living, but like we have a $15 minimum wage. We don't have this weird ass Jim Crow $2 an hour for a server. Well, you're getting tips, so you better be happy about it.
Yeah.
The only time I've ever seen anything like that was when I did DoorDash for a few very dark, fucked up months of my life, where they were literally like, "Oh, you're getting a tip, but we're using that to pay a bunch of like the ride or your regular payment." You know what I mean? Like it's some creepy shit going on. I mean, we're living in.
I drive for Instacart just to make a couple extra bucks, a couple extra bucks, right? And I think that kind of gig economy, that's where we really need to start targeting as far as labor organizers. And Prop 22 was a big slap in the face, I think, to gig workers. But the thing is, it doesn't have to stop us. What is going to make everything problematic is that the legislation that's being drawn up by other states that New York already passed, where essentially, you can form a union, and yes, you can go on strike, but guess what? You can't picket the business. You can't be in the parking lots. You have to be X amount of distance away. So they're essentially taking the strikers' ability to essentially publicize this is why we're doing it. Here's our conditions inside this factory, warehouse, whatever it is, right? But you can't picket on the grounds of where you're working. New York is passing that law, and it's like, what's the fucking point, man?
That's insane. That's insane. I don't get it. And the rideshare stuff or the gig economy is so difficult already because we're already atomized enough as workers, even in a workplace where they have security cameras on you, and they're always watching or listening, right? But then you're literally just completely atomized, where your whole work experience is through this app on your phone.
Yeah.
And maybe you'll see another DoorDash or Instacart person when you go to fucking Chipotle or whatever that just gave its CEO's $1 million rather, what you call it, bonuses, and you kind of give a nod, hey bro, but like what else is there?
Yeah, I mean that killed me too, because you saw the press release in the articles cut, right? Like they're like, do you see what this push to get you paid more? Look at what it did. I had to pay 23 cents more for my burrito.
Yeah, well, and my local Fox affiliate, TV news trash, they ran with that story, and all the boomer Facebook people, commenters were all over it.
Yeah, yeah, and that's what kills me, man. And the sad thing is, it's like I think you and I probably are fighting the same battles with Sinclair-owned stations, because they are really pushing that. Look how lazy America is. Like, nobody wants to work. It's gonna.
Yeah.
If we give them more money, we're going to have to raise all these prices. No, what we need to do is limit executive pay. That is how we limit prices, right? Like that is how you're able to bring prices down. And I've had this train of thought since 2008, Joe, when you saw Jamie Dimon, who I don't know if everybody knows who Jamie Dimon is, but he's the CEO of the Citibank Group. And he took a shit ton of money from the federal government. He, was one of the executives that pushed those really shady financial products, right? And
it's just a product,
Yeah, it's just a product. But he gave himself like the board of executives gave him a $50 million bonus in 2008 just because Citigroup managed to not fall apart. Right. And then Jamie Dimon has the balls last month to get in front of Congress and say, well, we took money from you, right? But now you want to raise our corporate tax rate. Well, we need an itemized list on what you're going to use our money from, right?
Wow. The audacity.
Dude, the balls, man. Like, that is ballsy as fuck.
Yeah, it's insane. And I like, again, with the historical analysis and the material analysis, like, we're living in a second Gilded Age, but what would we call it? Like the fiber, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
The fiber optic age or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, Silicon Valley has an insane amount of power, but so do just these. I mean, oil still has an incredible amount of power.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And the thing is, I know you've noticed that oil's pivoting. They're making that pivot now to say, well, we're going to use a lot of these revenue and we're going to start dumping money into stocks to buy up solar companies, wind companies. Like, they're doing this huge pivot. So there can be like, well, look, we're willing to back off of oil a bit, but they're still going to be selling it by the bajillions to the fucking Department of Defense here in the United States.
Yep.
The United States is one of the main suppliers to the Israeli military. It's ridiculous. Like, we're exporting. This is what kills me. We went to Kuwait to defend them, right? And then to help our ally in Saudi Arabia, who puts out more oil than any other country. But the thing is we fight these wars to say, well, we don't need we can't have our energy independence compromised because we import, right? No, the thing is, we're exporting more oil than we bring in now. The United States is. Like, so, like, I don't understand how we can continue, like you said, to allow these oil corporations to sit here and continue to pollute at just astronomical levels, raking in, stupid profit, but couch our national defense and energy independence. It's like, dude, you could keep that shit here and literally just pump it from a refinery in Texas or Louisiana on the Gulf Coast into North Carolina, where we had a shortage because hackers got really fucking smart. I'm not even mad about it. Like, we could keep this home rather than sending it out. But, hey, what the fuck do I know?
Yeah, man. And I live like among like hundreds of capped wells. This valley, is a bunch of capped wells. Everybody knows this area as like, a very agricultural area. But as soon as you get out of the valley and into the hills, there's hydraulic steam, fracturing, not fracking, but hydraulic steam injection, which is, just one step below that.
Yeah.
And just all kinds of oil extraction. And so, we're at this point. We're in a second Gilded Age. Like, this is the outcome of neoliberalism, the great deregulation, the great dismantling of our basic social great society. And here we are, where the mega rich are now like, well, they're reading the writing on the wall. If they don't have, the underground triple insulated bunker with the hydroponic, seed library and all this shit, we're going to go to space now. For exploration, we just want to check it out, man. Like, why can't we do that?
You know what? Put them all in one rocket, send them. Get them the fuck out of here. That's just how I feel about it, man. Go. Because I think we'd be a lot better off without these assholes. And let's face it, with Elon's track record with rockets, that shit's gonna blow up before it gets into space.
Well, maybe, and Bezos is about to go up, but like, I just have this vision of like all of the rich, the meek shall inherit the earth. All of the rich going on these super mega rockets, just going to Mars, and their crazy little creepy Ayn Randian libertarian utopia or whatever they have, private police and all this kinds of shit, indentured servants and everything. Oh, you want to ride to Mars, you got to pay, right? But then as they do this, just leaving behind these giant clouds, we're just we're all left down on the earth.
It's gonna be like that. Was that Matt Damon movie? Like, what was it called? Elysium?
Yes.
That it?
I never saw it, but I was aware of the outline, and I was like, I don't think I want to see some shit that I'm just going to see in the news when my kids are like getting ready to have their kids, or when they're realizing they can't afford to have kids, much like I am.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you, man. Like, it's nuts. And the thing is like, we sit here, and as we continue to watch the economic gaps continue to grow and grow and grow. And so many people get left behind. And the thing is, this isn't even just like a college thing, right? Where we've seen prices of college since 1980 shoot up over 240%, but pay has only went up like, I think it was 28%, if I remember the article correctly.
Mm-hmm.
But like, trade schools aren't cheap anymore. And in a few trades, like HVAC and welding, you still have like that really antiquated, apprentice, journeyman, master kind of setup. So, you could be an apprentice for how many years? You can be a journeyman for how many years before you can strike out and work for yourself,